Right, graphs of functions, grade 11 and grade 12. Parabolas, graphs of functions. How do we find the values of x for which f of x is less than 0, or f of x is greater than 0, or f of x is less than or greater than any other number that may be given to you? That's what we are discussing in this section. How do you find the values of x for which f of x is less than 0 or bigger than 0 or less than or bigger than any number that they may ask you? So to understand this, let's have a look at what happens when a graph is drawn. Now, when you draw your graph, the x-axis, the equation of this line is y is equal to 0. This is the equation of the x-axis. Y is equal to 0. So along the line, at the points where the graph is crossing the x-axis, we say f of x, which is y, is equal to 0. So on the line, f of x, which is y, is equal to 0. Now, below this line going downwards, f of x is now smaller than 0. Above this line, f of x is bigger than 0. So if a question says to you, what are the values of x for which f of x is less than 0? We are simply saying to you, which part of this graph is below the x-axis? Which part of this graph is below the x-axis? So that's what we are looking for. So for the first question, we are focusing on that part which is below the x-axis. Which part of the graph is below the x-axis? We also need to remind each other that less than 0 means negative. So we have to look at the negative part of the graph of f. The negative part is the section which is below the x-axis. So in my case, it is the one I have highlighted in green. Then the other pieces of the function, they are above the x-axis. Therefore, f of x is greater than 0 in those sections. Now what you need to do is to write the values of x. Where is this happening? So my first answer comes from noticing that the part of the graph which is on the negative side is from -1 to 5. And that gives me the answer for number 1.1. From -1 to 5, the graph of f is below the x-axis. The graph of f is below the 0 point. And that gives us the answer. The part of the graph which is on the negative. Which part of the graph is on the negative? It's from -1 up to 5. We can also express our answer as an inequality. -1 is less than x and x is less than 5. Question number 2. Now number 2, if you look at number 2, f of x is bigger than 0. Bigger than 0 are the positive sections that we have highlighted here. So your main duty is to tell us, where is this happening? And we can see that it's happening this section here, which means from the left side. And it's also happening this section here, which means from the right hand side. So our answer will be from -infinity to -1 and from 5 up to +infinity. In those two sections, the graph is positive, the graph is bigger than 0. Your understanding of this question must help you to answer even if it's not 0. Let's say we have this question number 3. What are the values of x for which f of x is less than 7? I have to find 7 along the x-axis and draw a line. What we need here now is that if you look back at when we did number 1.1, f of x is less than 0, we said the graph of f is below 0 which means below the x-axis. If we say f of x is below 7, f of x is less than 7, it means on this graph, from which part of the graph is below the line y is equal to 7? That part, that region is less than 7. So for you to answer the question, you need to know what is the corresponding value at the bottom here for this point, and what is the corresponding value here for this point. To do that, we equate f of x to 7 and then work out the resulting equation. So f of x is equal to 7. It's a quadratic equation. We get two values, minus 2 and 6 in my case. Now, the two values that we have for x, one is for the first point and one is for the next one. So the one on the left is negative 2 and the one on the right is positive 7. So from negative 2 up to 7, when x is negative 2, from negative 2 up to 7, this whole section at the bottom here, right through until here, that part of the graph of f is below 7. It is less than 7. Expect something like this in an exam. If we say f of x is below 10, it means the graph of f is below the line y is equal to 10. So you equate the graph to the given number and then solve to find out the two values where the graph is below that given line. So in this case, the graph is below 7, and we need to know which two values of x is this happening, and those numbers is what we have calculated here. It's happening from x is equal to negative 2 up to x is equal to 6, and that is the answer for that question. So we can express it. X is an element of negative 2 up to positive 6. That's how we answer this kind of questions. If you follow through very closely, you will see that the concepts are applicable to any type of graphs. You can do definitely this correctly without any problem. Just like any other math concepts, you obviously must also revise and study and revise and study and revise and study and practice and revise and study and practice until you are smooth and fast in getting your answers. So the next time you see f of x less than 0, the negative. F of x bigger than 0, the positive. F of x bigger than a certain number or f of x less than a certain number, then you have to do some calculations to find the values that are required. That is our answer for this particular question. Graphs of functions grade 11 and grade 12. We are looking at how to determine the values of x for which f of x is less than 0 or f of x is bigger than 0. So for us to have this done correctly, we need to understand what it means. Now on our grid, the x-axis is the line y is equal to 0. This is the line y is equal to 0. So that's why at the x-intercepts, f of x is equal to 0. Now below the x-intercept, going downwards, below the x-intercept, f of x is no longer equal to 0, but instead f of x is smaller than 0. Above the x-axis, f of x is bigger than 0. So if we say to you, what are the values of x for which f of x is less than 0, we are asking you to tell us which part of this graph is below the line y is equal to 0. Which part of this graph is below the line y is equal to 0, or which part of this graph is on the negative side. That is the answer required, and the answers are determined by the x-intercept. From the left up to -1, the graph is below 0, and from 5 going to the right, the graph is also below 0. So those sections of the graph I've highlighted in green there, they are the ones that we are asking for. The ones highlighted in green, those sections are negative because they are below 0. So your answer for number 1, from negative infinity to -1, or from 5 to positive infinity, the graph is below the x-axis. It is below the line y is equal to 0. Therefore, we say f of x is less than 0. Number 2, f of x is bigger than 0. Something bigger than 0 is something positive. Now we need the answer, we need the section on the graph where the graph is on the positive side. And we can see that it's happening between -1 and 5. So in between, the positive one is this section that I've highlighted in red, and this is happening from this point right through up to 5. The graph is above the x-axis, therefore it is positive. Now, sometimes in some examination questions, they may give you a number here which is not 0. Now, I call those kind of questions the teacher never taught us questions. Let's say we want to find the values of x for which f of x is less than -7. Now, we simply have to go to -7 along the y-axis. Then anything that is on the line y is equal to -7. That means at this point here and at that point. So at this point and at that point, f of x is equal to -7. Then below this line, f of x is below -7. F of x is less than -7. So what we need now is that we need to find out at this point where f of x is equal to -7, what is the corresponding value of x up here? Then at this point, what is the corresponding value of x up here? And to find those numbers, you equate the equation to -7 and solve for x. So mine solved here is giving me x is equal to -2 and 6. So I'm going to have -2 at this point and 6 on the right hand side. So the interpretation of our answer now is that from the left side up to -2, which means from -infinity up to -2, the graph is all below -7. This whole section here is below -7. That is from -infinity up to -2. Then from the number 6 going to the right hand side, the graph is below -7. That means the graph is less than, or f of x is less than -7. So to complete your answer, you simply have to write these two, and that gives you the answer for that question. So for f of x is less than -7, it means we need -infinity to -2 and from 6 to +infinity. That answers your question. Very common questions in our examinations, and definitely we must be able to do something like this in our exams. So study, revise, practice. Things will work out at the end. Have a look, study, and let me know what you think about this one. Are you managing? If there's anything you need, don't hesitate to let us know. Then we can assist you with whatever that you may want as far as mathematics is concerned. Right, a quick recap of this section. Determine the values of x for which f of x is less than 0. Less than 0 means negative. Therefore, we need that section of the graph, the part of the graph of f which is on the negative side. In our case, the graph is negative. This green highlighted area, that means from negative 1 to 5, f of x is less than 0. Now, greater than 0 is simply the opposite of the previous one. We want sections of the graph which are on the positive side above the line 0. So in our case, it's negative infinity to negative 1 and 5 to positive infinity. Then if we change the 0 to any specific number, so we have used 7 as an example here, the idea does not change. So the graph of f, it means the graph of f is below 7. You go to 7 on the y-axis and then check from there which part of your graph is below that line y is equal to 7. And the points may need to be calculated because they may not be given on the graph. And to calculate them, we equate the f of x to 7 or to whatever number is given. Solve for x and get your two numbers. Those are the two numbers you use to determine the answer for that question. That is this particular section. Thank you very much. With the practice and studying, it should definitely make sense and be way much easier for all of us.